أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم طاسيم تلك آيات الكتاب المبين نتلو عليك من نبأ موسى وفرعون بالحق لقوم يؤمنون إن فرعون علا في الأرض وجعل أهلها شيعا يستضعف طائفة منهم يذبح أبناءهم ويستحيي نساءهم إنه كان من المفسدين ونريد أن نمن على الذين استضعفوا في الأرض ونجعلهم أئمة ونجعلهم الوارثين ونمكن لهم في الأرض ونري فرعون وهامان وجنودهما منهم ما كانوا يحذرون صدق الله العظيم.
Assalamu everybody. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. ربي اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقهوا قولي. Again, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, everyone. I'm so happy to have you all back, alhamdulillah, and I hope you had a good time after Eid. Thank you again to Sheikh Amin for reciting for us. I found him at this dinner, mashallah, and I just the way he recites really speaks to me a lot, wallah, and it's like slow and takes its time with each ayah. It's something that I feel like we're kind of missing out on nowadays. So I'm really happy and grateful that he's able to come and recite for us today. So bismillah, we have a lot to talk about. I know it's our first day back after a while, but we're going to jump right in, inshallah. Okay, you guys ready? My class, are they here, by the way? I see you. Raise your hand, please. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. No, I got it here. Not you. 5. Good stuff. Welcome. Thank you for coming. All right, bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. You guys ready? So we're starting something that's a little bit different for Tanzeel, which is we're going over a story in a lot of detail. We're taking probably what's going to be, I want to say, the next few months because of our schedule, because we're only twice a month essentially, right? So the next few months talking about the story of Musa alayhi salam, and we're going to be hitting it in a bunch of different perspectives, which will make more sense as we go, inshallah. But first things first, I do want to give a little bit of an intro, then I'm going to give us a little bit of a break for tea, inshallah, and then we're going to start with the actual story itself. I'm going to try to keep the intro to like 10-15 minutes, inshallah. Is something wrong? Something happened? Moth? I saw the moth earlier. Yeah, it's okay. Just eat it, and then it will go away. All right, bismillah. You guys ready? Yeah, I know. Bismillah. You guys ready? Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. So, Musa alayhi salam, well, let me talk about this actually first. Names in the Quran, or people mentioned in the Quran. The Quran does a has a very conservative take when it comes to naming people. I don't want to say there's more than not, but a vast majority of characters that speak in the Quran or that part of a story are not actually mentioned by name. Very few people are mentioned by name, okay? Those that are mentioned by name, the majority of them are prophets. There are many non-prophets named, like Maryam alayhi salam, for example, is at least argued that she's not a prophet. There's an argument that she is, but that's not for right now. Fir'aun is obviously not a prophet, and that's sort of used, even though it's a title used as his name. Dhul Qarnayn is not a prophet, at least argued not to be. So, Luqman, not a prophet, but he's named multiple times. But when you kind of do a count of the most often mentioned names in the Quran, what you're going to have on the top are usually the prophets. So this is just names in general. Interestingly enough, Musa alayhi salam, the one, obviously the prophet we're going to be speaking about in a lot of detail in the next coming weeks, inshallah, he's mentioned the most. And he's mentioned the most by a lot. A lot. Over 2 times the runner-up he's mentioned. So Musa alayhi salam, 136 direct mentions. By the way, when I say mention, I mean mentioned by name. I want to call that out, right? Mentioned by name. Then Abraham alayhi salam, and we are, by the way, the religion of Abraham. That's what we claim to be. All Islam claims to be is whatever Ibrahim alayhi salam learned from Allah, he passed that down basically onto Bani Israel, the Jews, and then eventually onto us through Ismail, through Ishmael, right? Then Nuh alayhi salam, Lut, Yusuf. This is not a comprehensive list, by the way. I just want to show you. Who's at the bottom of the list? Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Now, I don't want to say bottom of the list, Yani, right? Because there's people mentioned even fewer times than he is. I want to call that out. There are people mentioned twice or even just 1 time, for example. With respect to Allah, some Christians, they use this as a really weird argument to say, oh, Jesus is mentioned more than Muhammad, so Jesus is honored more. And that's like, okay, well then Moses is more important than the one you worship. So if you want to play that game, we can play that. We can keep playing that game. Also, the Pharaoh is mentioned like almost as much as Jesus, if not more. So are you saying that the Pharaoh is more honored than Jesus Christ, alayhi salam? You know what I mean? So, but I do want to call something out. If you include indirect mentions, what do I mean by indirect mentions, by the way? Class, what are we calling these now? Pronouns. Careful, pronouns. When we put in pronouns, like if we mention he or you, the way Allah talks about him or to him directly, that will go up into the hundreds. Okay, in terms of direct plus indirect mentions. We're talking about just by name. But then one obvious question comes up. What's the obvious question? Why Musa? Specifically, why Musa? And why by this much? Like you can imagine someone winning this race by a couple of mentions, but he, like between Abraham and Noah is like 26. Between Noah and Lut is what, 20? I'm bad at math. What was that, 16? Right? But between Musa and Ibrahim, the second place is literally more than twice as much. So why this much? And this is what I kind of want to talk to you about. And I want to introduce why does Musa salam have such a high status in the Quran? That's a good question to ask. There are some scholars that, there's one scholar, forgive me, I forget the name, rahimahullah, may Allah reward him, but he had the opinion that the Quran was almost going to be the story of Musa. Just the whole thing was just going to be his story. By the amount of times that he's mentioned. The very first surah after Fatiha mentions who? Musa. And it goes in detail about a lot of his people. You have a number of surahs that we're going to talk about today that are almost exclusively just talking about him. And he's also one of the last prophets mentioned and one of the first. You know what I mean? He's given so much precedence, so why Musa? Why isn't Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam given this precedence? Why isn't Jesus given this precedence, this status? And this is what I want to go into. The way I want to go into it is actually going to be through the Bible. So this is going to be a little bit of an interesting way to get at it. But this is what you have in front of you is Deuteronomy book 18 verses 15 to 19. Deuteronomy is one of the books in the Old Testament. So the Bible has it's comprised of the Old Testament, which just in a nutshell, the Old Testament is given to the Jews. The New Testament is believed by the Christians. The Christians accept the New Testament. Christians accept the New and the Old Testament. Jews only the Old. Just as a quick, in case you didn't know. This is in the Old Testament. So who's the primary audience of what's being said right now? The Jews, primary audience. But who's also listening? The Christians. I'm just going to read it to you. I got to practice my tajweed. I'm joking. That was more funny than I got credit for. Okay, the Lord, you guys ready? The Lord, this is by the way, God and Musa talking, and also Musa and the Israelites talking, his followers. So I want to make that clear. Okay, bismillah. So this is, I believe, Musa's opening up first. Yes, Musa's the one talking in quotations right now in the beginning. You ready? The Lord your God will raise up for you a prophet like me. Who's me? Musa. So Musa's saying, you're going to get a prophet like me, from among you, from your brothers. This is going to be important later. The from your brothers part. It is to him you shall listen, just as you desired of the Lord your God at Horeb on the day of the assembly, when you said, let me not hear again the voice of the Lord my God, or see this great fire any more, lest I die. And the Lord said to me, this is again, who's me? Musa alayhi salam. Allah, this is claiming that God said to Moses, they are right in what they have spoken. I will raise up for them a prophet like you. Who's you? I want to drive this in. Musa, good. Like you from among their brothers. Again, the word brothers comes up. This is, I want to call out, this is English Standard Version, there's like 30 versions, so forgive me. And this is the one that I was told to kind of rely on anyway. And I will put my words in his mouth. So God is saying, I'm going to put my words in this new prophet's mouth. That's what he's saying. And he shall speak to them all that I command him. And whoever will not listen to my words, that he shall speak in my name, I myself will require it of him. So that's end quote. That's in the Bible, again, in the book of Deuteronomy in the Old Testament. Okay. Now then becomes up a debate. Okay, what's the big question? Who's the prophet like Moses? Now obviously what do the Christians argue? First and foremost, they argue a couple things, but who's first and foremost? That Jesus ﷺ is that prophet that Moses is now promising in the Bible. So Moses 3,000 years ago is like, hey everyone listen up, there's a prophet that's going to be a lot like me. He's going to speak God's word verbatim basically, right? I will put my words in his mouth. He's going to be a lot like me and he's going to come later. You must obey him. So in the Christian perspective, who do they think that this prophecy is fulfilling? Is Jesus Christ ﷺ. We believe it's actually who? Muhammad. I want to actually draw you a comparison. I didn't put any fancy graphics, so you're going to see a full list right now. Just follow my voice and not the words as of right now. Okay, you guys ready? We're going to do a quick comparison, just a quick overview comparison between Musa ﷺ and what two other characters? Jesus and who else? Muhammad. I want to show all three. It's just a quick overview. Ready? Oh, well, first actually, let me call some things out. You know what? No, I'll get back to this. Quick comparison. Musa ﷺ was raised by other than his parents. Who was he raised by? The Pharaoh actually raised him and his wife raised him. The Prophet ﷺ was also actually raised by other than his parents, and that's a much longer list than just two other people. That's Amna, for example, may Allah be pleased with her, and that's her husband. I don't even know if we know his name. That's even his older sister, his older half-sister kind of helped a little bit. That's Abdul Muttalib, that's Abu Talib, that's even eventually, believe it or not, Abu Lahab for a very short amount of time, but still. But sticking to the infancy as a baby, he's raised by other than his parents. Isa ﷺ, was he raised by anyone other than Maryam? No. Moses was sent to a diverse religious environment. He was sent to Egypt, where it was basically paganism and Judea, what was left of Islam from the Jews. But even then it was very scarce. So you had some Muslims mixing paganism and Islam in Egypt. You had some that were very weak, some that remember Yusuf ﷺ because he precedes that story in Egypt and so on and so forth. Muhammad ﷺ also a very, very diverse religious environment where you had paganism, but you had some people that were like, I'm following whatever Abraham followed. Very few people, but still. You had Jews in Medina, not a week or two walk, a distant horse ride in a certain direction, and you see a community of a lot of Jews in the area, and you have some Christians as well. Jesus ﷺ only sent to the Israelites who were basically at the time we believe are Muslim. That was his only job. That was his only job. There wasn't much complication in terms of audience. In fact, in the Bible, and forgive me, I totally forgot I was going to get this quote as well. In the Bible, so this is not our text, it's their text. I want to make that, you can easily Google it. There's a certain verse where a Roman woman, I believe she was from Rome, but she was a non-Muslim, a non-Jew. She came from a different land other than Judea, and she came to Jesus hearing that he's a prophet. And she basically asked him, I'm not saying this verbatim, this is just what I remember, just summarizing it a little bit, teach me what God taught you. And Isa ﷺ got angry with her and said, I was only sent to who? Israel. Or what he called in the Bible the lost sheep of Israel. I was not sent to you whatsoever. So even when a pagan did come and try to learn from him, no, I'm not here for you. Musa ﷺ was sent to Egypt, which was diverse. Okay, anyway. Musa received a new law. What was that law called? The Tawrat. On the mountain, he received the law of Tawrat. Muhammad ﷺ also received a new law that abrogated previous law. What was that law? The law in the Quran. Isa ﷺ, was he given a new law? You might not know this. No. In fact, even in Quran it says that he teaches whatever بَيْنَ يَدَيَّ مِنَ التَّوْرَاتِ. In the Quran it says. But even if you don't want to use Quran, even in the New Testament, he doesn't claim to bring new law. He claims to be fulfilling the law of who? Moses. So that's a major difference between the two. Musa and Muhammad ﷺ, both of them had strong opposition that led to war, led to fighting, led to them having to defensive war and a little bit of offensive war as well, both of them. Isa alayhi salam never had opposition that led to war. He never fought. Musa and Muhammad both received revelation on a mountain at age 40. That's like a little too specific, Gadi, you know what I mean? That's a little bit much. Both of them. Both of them. Oh, I don't want to spoil it. I'll talk about that later. Isa alayhi salam received revelation at birth. How do we know that? Awsani bis-salati wa zakati ma dumtu hayya. He said, as a baby, I was given counsel, bis-salati wa zakat. I was taught how to pray and taught how to give zakat. Zakat, zero, but still, I was taught how to do these two things, ma dumtu hayya, as long as I'm alive. Isa said, as a baby, alayhi salam. Musa and Muhammad, normal birth. Isa alayhi salam, obviously the miraculous virgin birth, the birth of the Virgin Mary, of course. Musa and Muhammad were both married. Multiple times from what we know. Isa alayhi salam not married, never married in his life. According to us at least. Yet. We believe he's coming back. That's also a big difference between us and them, is they believe that he died, we believe that he's still alive, that he was raised up to Allah. The point is, when you even just add an overview, I mean this to me especially, dude, come on now, a little bit too on the nose. When you compare these three men, alayhim salam, may Allah be pleased with all of them, and sallallahu, when you compare these, who is the prophet like Moses? Muhammad. And by the way, let me go back now. I told you before in this prophecy, I'm going to raise a prophet. He's going to raise a prophet like me from among you, from your brothers. So Christians argue, oh, that means he's going to be of the Jews, which means it must be Jesus. But this from your brothers, who are the brothers of the Jews? If you go back in time, not Muslims, be specific. Be specific. Arabs. The Arab. Abraham alayhi salam had two sons. Ishaq, who basically led the ethnic, by the way, I'm talking about ethnicity, not religion right now. Ethnically, he gave birth to all the nations of Jews. And Ismail, alayhi salam, his lineage is all what? Arab. So meaning literally from your brother, from across the aisle, or your cousins you can even say. I will raise up from them a prophet like you. Who's, again, I'm making the point clear, but who's the prophet really more? If you want to, just from a historical perspective, who's the prophet more so like Moses? Is actually Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And by the way, dude, come on, and I will put my words in his mouth. Well, what's this talking about? Quran. Literally, Quran was not like and it got brought down. No, he literally employed angels, the Gabriel, the archangel, and brought him down and literally put the words in his mouth. He taught him the words. It wasn't a book. It wasn't a book. Isa alayhi salam was holding a book. The Prophet ﷺ, there was no what? Book, because he put the words in his mouth. It's subhanallah. He shall speak in my name, by the way. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Literally, in the name of Allah. He shall speak in my name. Anyway, it's just to kind of drive the point home, even from a historical perspective, there's so much overlap between who and who. Muhammad and Musa alayhi salam. Now here's where we're going to go more into Quran, so pay attention to this. This is where we're going to take a break soon and we're going to get started officially. You ready for this? In the Bible, I know I just said we're going to go in the Quran, but listen to this. In the Bible, there are a lot. Have you anyone here actually read even parts? Probably not. Okay, I recommend you do. You should know, but you should also explore other faiths and like other books and stuff like that. You should do that just for education's sake. But anyway, if you read a story in the Bible and a story in the Quran, there's a lot of differences. A lot, and I'm not just talking about differences in events, which there are differences in events, and there's a lot of them that we'll talk about even. Okay. But there's differences even in what's being focused on. I told you, for example, Allah is very conservative with what? Names. The Bible is very liberal with names. It will stop to do a couple of verses on like the genealogy of Joseph. His mother was this, and her father was this guy, and her mother was this guy, who's the cousin of this guy, who's the brother of this guy, who's the uncle of this woman. You know what I mean? Like it goes on and on. Allah spares that detail. So, from a biblical perspective, stories more so have this historical purpose. From the Quranic perspective, history is still a purpose, but that's not at all the only purpose. History is a little bit, the purpose is almost, I don't, this is my words, not anyone else's, it's almost secondary. The primary purpose for a story, you should know if you come to Tanzeel, what's the primary purpose of anything in the Quran is what? Guidance. Guidance. The primary purpose for any story in the book is guidance. That's the point. Otherwise, this doesn't need to be talked about. You don't need to know that name because how is it going to help you? How is it going to help you with your marriage? How is it going to help you with your kids? How is it going to help you at work? How does knowing this name or this gene, how does that, who cares? Focus on the lesson. Focus on the guidance. That's the Qur'an's approach. But I want to add to this a little bit. The Prophet ﷺ, did he have an easy time or a hard time with his mission? So Allah literally stuffed, and I mean like stuffed the book with lessons from the exact Prophet that he can 100% relate to. One thing I didn't put on this list, both of them got kicked out from their home. Isa ﷺ would not have helped them. That story would not have helped them in those feelings. It wouldn't have. They both came back. Isa ﷺ did not witness that, did not experience that. But how's the story of Abraham or Isa gonna... Did Abraham ever go back to his home after he left? No. Both of them spent a decade actually, subhanAllah. Weird. They both spent a decade in another home and came back. Both of them. Arguably at least. 8 or 10 for the Musa, but still. He still stands. Both of them visited the Kaaba, which we'll get to. Like the one that would like if he which he did talk to him, but if he talked to him, he would get him the most is who? The Prophet is Musa alayhi salam. So Allah gave him these stories and things about Musa to be like, you are not the first one that this all happened to. You need to take lessons from the story of what? The story of Musa alayhi salam. And furthermore, we're learning that the Prophet that we're going to benefit the most after Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam is who? Musa alayhi salam. There's lessons in here that are not just for him sallallahu alaihi wasallam, they're for us as well. We need to reconnect to these lessons. So I'm going to do a quick overview and then we're going to take a break and come back. Oh, okay, we're making good time. This is where things get sick, so please listen to this. I am so excited for this reason. Listen. What I want to do with you is not just focus on the story, because you can listen to like a Mufti Menk lecture or whatever online and you'll get the story. And typically when someone tells the story, they just start with this happened and then this happened and then that happened and then this happened. Let me ask you, if anyone who's read a story in Quran, does Allah tell a story like that? No. The only story in the Quran that's all in one place is what? Yusuf. Everything else is so scattered. Everything else is so, you can even argue all over the place. But there's a beauty here. To the untrained eye, that makes it look quote-unquote random. What we're going to do is twofold. We're not going to just go through the story, inshallah, of Musa alayhi salam. We're going to go through how does Allah choose to tell a story. And we're going to find things here, guys, that are just like, wallahi, beyond man. We're going to see some stuff. Okay? So the two things I said we're going to focus on are what? Not just the story itself, but what else? How does Allah tell a story? This is the first lesson, the first introduction to that story, at least with Musa alayhi salam. If you were to focus on Musa alayhi salam before the water split, so in the Egypt region or like in Medina or whatever, okay? You're going to find that his story, uninterrupted, comes in 3 major surahs. The 3 major surahs are up on the screen. They're surah number 20 with Taha, surah number 26 with Shu'ara, and surah number 30 with Qasas. Okay? Taha focuses on the events of him talking to God on the mountain. That's where the story actually begins, is on the mountain. So, and that, by the way, that's the first instance of a major accounting of his story. So if you never heard of Musa, the only thing is like, okay, there's a guy, now he's at the mountain. And now he's talking to God. That's kind of where it's starting. Does that make sense so far? If you're starting the book from the beginning. Then if you keep reading Quran, you get to 26, and now he left the mountain, and now he went back to Egypt, and he's talking to who? The Pharaoh. Almost all of the Shu'ara account is the conversation and the argument between him and the Pharaoh. Then you go on a little bit more, and you go to Qasas, and you find that actually it starts from the beginning. Now he's a baby. At the beginning of the story, he's a baby. You know what's so crazy about this, wallah? You might not recognize this because we're so like devoid of thinking of Quran like this. This is sort of kind of like a season 1, season 2, and season 3. You know how like some shows, what they do is they'll have like a couple episodes and then they go back to before episode 1 happened? You know what I mean? To like kind of take you back and give you more context to why what's happening in episode 1 is happening. That's sort of how Allah's telling the story. Is going back to early life. By the way, what did Breaking Bad do? I love Breaking Bad, by the way. But after Breaking Bad was over, what new show did they make?
Better Call Saul.
Which is it following the main character of Breaking Bad, or who's it following? Some side character. You don't have to know the actual show. But like, because some of you are like, "Mashallah, you know like the fiqh of Breaking Bad really well." But like, the point is, in Breaking Bad, which is what, like a 5-6 season show, it's all following Walter White. That's kind of the whole point, is the story of Walter White, okay? And it goes back and forth in time, of course, but once that story was said and done, then they released actually 2 more stories, both of them following a side character. One Jesse Pinkman, one Saul Goodman, yeah? Right? You get the point. They follow a side character. Same thing here. In Ghafir, you actually, and actually there's multiple stories like this, not just this one, but Ghafir, it actually points the camera away from Musa a.s. and points at someone. I'm not going to tell you who yet, because that's part of what we're going to talk about, and I'm so excited to tell you what that is, but I'm not going to tell you what that is. But that's going to be kind of like the better, oh look, he's here, subhanAllah. What up, bud? He's just reading. That's going to be kind of like our, astaghfirullah, like better spin-off of Musa. That's kind of like this, I don't want to say the better, but it's like a spin-off story, literally, that adds to the main story. It actually makes you appreciate what happens in previous seasons. That's what happened in Qasas. I had no idea. That was that guy? Oh my God. You know, like you have those moments seasons later where you're like, I have to rewatch it from the beginning because there's so many pieces, bro, like that. Same thing happening here, subhanAllah. Here's what we're going to do. And I don't want to give too much of an intro, so I'm going to end it here. We're going to break for some tea and come back and actually start the story, inshallah, okay? This is just an overview. We're starting from Qasas. I do want to go in order. We're going to start with Qasas. We're going to go back and do Taha and then do Shu'ara. Each one of them, I'll quickly tell you. Each one of them highlights something. They handle different, they tackle different themes. In Qasas, we're going to see the theme is faith. And you'll see, wallahi, the beauty behind that in a little bit. Taha, the theme is intimacy with Allah and even growth. Intimacy with God and growth. The theme of Shu'ara is something called rhetoric. How to make an argument. I'm so excited for that one. That one's going to be sick. I have a friend of mine who, mashallah, he's like a historian / philosopher. I'm going to have him come in and we're going to talk about rhetoric and the art of language. Because when he's speaking to Pharaoh, guess who has bad rhetoric? The Pharaoh. So we're going to study that. It's convincing rhetoric, but bad rhetoric. That's what we're going to talk about, inshallah. For now, though, I'm going to give you guys like a 3-minute break. And by that, I mean 2.5. So 8:30, we're going to start again. Please welcome yourselves to some tea in the back, and then we'll meet again at like, let's say 8:31 actually. So go ahead, enjoy yourselves, get some tea, and we'll be back, inshallah. What's up? I want to reiterate what we're talking about right now for those of you that excel. By the way, I do want to say this. This is one of the things I feel like in my life that birthed the love of Quran for me. That this exact, like what we're starting today, is one of the like early things I picked up on. I'm talking early, like when I was like between 18 and 20 years old. It's one of the first things I was exposed to about Quran that I'm like, man, if this is in here, what else is in here? You know? I'm not promising that you're going to have the same reaction, Yani. That's not what I'm promising. What I am promising is when you do have that moment, you better make sure you memorize whatever it is that gives you that moment so that you keep it with you forever. So for the few of you that do want to excel and memorize, I will tell you we're doing a lot of qasas. We're doing like 4 pages. We've never done this much in a row at Tanzeel before. Usually we do like little snippets of Quran. This time we're doing like 4 or 5 pages at a time. Those of you that want to excel, this is qasas. So this is surah number 28 from the beginning. So I just want to call that out. I want to start from the beginning. Again, we're focusing on 2 things, everyone. What are the 2 things? Not just the story. That's one. What's the other one? How it's being told. You ready? Actually, I'll say that in a second, inshallah. Bismillah. Ready? Allah starts off this story. I want you to imagine like the screen is blank, nothing's happening yet, and Allah opens up Ta Sin Mim. Tilka ayatul kitabul mubin. Those are the clear signs of the clear book. Those are the obvious, miraculous signs of the clear book. نَتْلُو عَلَيْكَ مِن نَبَإِ مُوسَى وَفِرْعَوْنَ بِالْحَقِّ. We're narrating onto you the story of Musa and Pharaoh with haqq. Haqq here means 2 things. Number 1, it means with accuracy. We're accurately telling you this story. We're not putting anything extra. We're not taking anything out. It's exactly what you need to hear. And also bilhaq, with purpose. There's a purpose behind this. We're not just telling you this so you entertain yourself. Stories, by the way, in human history have always been an obsession. We right now pay, if you look at like your Chase app, you pay at least like $1,000 a year just on stories, video games, movies, TV shows, books for some of us, right? Stories have always been an obsession. And the point of a story is actually first and foremost what usually? Entertainment. That's the point. And Allah is saying, no, I'm telling, it's going to be a story. It'll be entertaining. The story is, you will have moments that make you cry. Wallahi, you'll have moments in Quran that make you laugh. There are moments that make you angry. But that is not the point. The point is, Allah says, I'm telling it bil haqq. And what's the point of this specific story in Qasas? لِقَوْمٍ يُؤْمِنُونَ. For a nation that wants to believe, for a nation that wants to have faith. This is like while the screen is black. You know how sometimes you have like the opening credits, the title, and then you have like this film is intended for certain audiences, whatever. It's like this is opening up like this story is intended for those that want to have Iman. That's what's opening up. And then pictures come up. Inna fir'auna ala fil ard. So we're fading from black, and now we're going into the actual setting of this story. This is the setting that sets everything else and gives it its context. Inna fir'auna ala fil ard. So the camera kind of zooms in on Fir'aun. And Allah, the first thing He says about the Pharaoh, ala fil ard. Ala fil ard, meaning that he's high on the land. He's up in the land. He's literally up in a tower. Allah has a bunch of different meanings that I want to read to you. To be high, to be elevated, to rise high, to loom, to tower up, to literally be fixed or fastened above or on top of something. So you imagine this kingdom, and we know that Pharaoh had a palace, and at the very top of that palace is who? Pharaoh. And ala fil ard also has a connotation of he's looking down at everything. He's looking down at his kingdom. Inna fir'auna ala fil ard. And part of this also is arrogance. Part of it also is oppression. There's two alas in Arabic. One is a fi'al, one is a harf. Some of you know what that means now. The fi'al is like he's above them. He made himself. He rose above them. The other one, when I say this is alayka, it means this is imposed upon you. As if what's being said here, he imposed himself on the land. Ala fil ard. So we're seeing the camera zooming in on him. وَجَعَلَ أَهْلَهَا شِيَعًا. And how did he do this? He actually broke apart all of its people into different Shi'as. Now when I say Shia, you probably think of Shia Sunni. I want you to take your mind away from that, because we have to go into the Arabic, right? Because this word existed longer than that sect existed. What is a Shia? A Shia is a group. It's a group of people. Okay, but there's a bunch of different words for group in Arabic, right? This is a specific group that is scared and has animosity towards other Shias. So when you're a group of people, like a clique in high school, for example, and your group like hates the jocks, who hate the preps, who hate the cheerleaders, who hate the geeks, who hate whatever, you have now become a bunch of different Shia, a bunch of different Shias. What is the benefit for someone who's ala fil ard, who's above everyone in the land? What's the benefit of breaking them down into different groups? What's Allah teaching us here? Divide and conquer. By the way, he could have just said broke them into different groups, but he didn't stop there. He used the word Shia, which means a group that basically hates or is afraid of another group. So these different groups the divisions that he created aren't just divisions, there's also animosity. And when they're so busy hating on each other, who are they not focusing on? The Pharaoh. Genius. By the way, does this work today? What does this remind you of?
Democrats, Republicans?
Muslims. Before Democrats and Republicans, actually, you're Pakistani and I'm Palestinian and he's Syrian and they're Uzbekistani and they're Mexican and never will they meet. Did you know, by the way, just as a quick pause, that after World War II, what literally happened was they sat down, they brought up a map and they got a pencil, and that's why our countries have such straight lines, mashallah. It's not because of the geographies being so precise. It's because a bunch of British and other men made lines for us. جَعَلَ أَهْلَهَا شِيَعًا. Literally. And we hate each other. Anyway, وَجَعَلَ أَهْلَهَا شِيَعًا يَسْتَضْعِفُ طَائِفَةً مِّنْهُمْ. He's not done yet though. So he did something in particular to the people, the people of Egypt now. You know one thing about them. There's a bunch of different groups. All the groups hate each other. That's number one. Number two though, يَسْتَضْعِفُ طَائِفَةً مِّنْهُمْ. He made one such group especially weak. He made one such group especially weak. Wallahi, just to go back into like Allah's storytelling, I want to highlight something. Do you guys remember Hunger Games? No, hold on, stay with me. What was the plot, literally, of Hunger Games? What was the pharaoh of that one? Snow or whatever, right? And he broke all humanity into different what? Districts. And then يَسْتَضْعِفُ طَائِفَةً مِّنْهُمْ, he weakened which district? District 12. So that when you go to District 1, either they don't believe they exist, or they believe they deserve it, or they hate them, or they're afraid of them, or oh whatever, like you don't know what they did back in whatever in this war, and they change history to make sure District 1 hates 5, hates 12. It's like, as much as people want to be like, oh, this is just asatir al-awwal, these are old stories, Allah's like, then stop using them in movies. Well, can I give another example? The Lion King. Hold on, you laugh, but just you're going to see it in a second. The Lion King is about a young lion cub, who he accidentally killed someone. Who did he accidentally kill? His father. And then someone told him, I mean well for you, you need to leave. So he left. And then he found a pig and a meerkat, and he stayed there for a couple of years and became a grown man. And then some face in the sky told him what? You need to go back and reclaim the kingdom from the oppressive king. So then he goes after Hakuna Matata and everything, but then he goes back and he takes it back, and then the lions are free. So original. That's so unique, subhanallah. How did someone conceive of that story? What does that sound like to you? Musa accidentally killing someone at Salam, and someone told him, I mean well for you, you need to leave. So he goes somewhere else and Hakuna Matata himself and comes back. He comes back and literally frees the Israelites from the Pharaoh. How original. You see how like Allah's storytelling, as much as they want to convince you that it's irrelevant, they literally can't help but use it. They can't help it. All these movies that we spend billions of dollars on, you and I even, hundreds if not thousands of dollars, you and I every year, they're just copyright infringement. Should give credit to Allah like in the beginning. You see that though? But anyway, back to the scene. Their District 12 of the District 12 of Egypt, the يَسْتَضْعِفُ طَائِفَةً مِّنْهُمْ, this ta'ifa that was especially weakened by the Pharaoh, who were they, everyone? The slaves. And the slaves were actually called Bani Israel. They were the Muslims of the time. Ethnically, they were the Jews of the time. They were the ones that believed in God. There was the hundreds of thousands, I think estimated around 600,000 people, potentially around that kind of number, okay? Let me paint this scene for you. We already know that there's a palace because we heard ala fil ard. Literally, he's towering above. So who's living in these large towers? Is the Pharaoh himself. And now, by the way, what is the major landmark in Egypt? The Nile. Well, sorry, not landmark, I guess like geographical landmark is what I meant, is the Nile River, yes? The Nile River, you can imagine, is kind of flowing like this. At the end of the river, meaning like towards like where it's flowing down, if you go all the way down the river, you have the palace of the Pharaoh, okay? If you go north a little bit, so going against the current, what is around every single like major city? You have like the suburbs, right? So you have people that aren't slaves, they're not Muslims, they're Coptics, they're actual ethnic Egyptians. And because of that, they have certain rights, because Egypt at this point is an apartheid state. So you have certain rights that you get as an Egyptian. But if you go north a little bit and go up the river, what's there? The ghettos, the slums, the slave quarters. And if you're Palestinian, you know what's always between the slums and the rich people part. What's always in between? Checkpoints and walls. Always. By the way, Allah says, وَفِرْعَوْنَ ذِي الْأَوْتَادِ. And Fir'aun, the owner of large military might. And that might take your mind out, like he goes around and he sends his armies, which he does, but isn't there always a domestic army? How do you think it's being used here? It's not just a police force. It's to make sure the slaves know that they're slaves, and if you want to go into the city, you have to show me your hawiyah, you have to show me your card, and you're not allowed to come in or go out unless you show me that card. The Coptics, the Egyptians don't have that. Who gets that? The slaves. يَسْتَضْعِفُ طَائِفَةً مِّنْهُمْ. They're especially weak. Why aren't they fighting back? Allah continues. The scene is still being painted of the setting here. يَسْتَضْعِفُ طَائِفَةً مِّنْهُمْ يُذَبِّحُ أَبْنَاءَهُم. He slaughters their baby boys. Ibn is a boy, a baby boy. You should know from vocab, some of you. يَسْتَضِيفُ طَائِفَةً يُذَبِّحُ أَبْنَاءَهُم. He slaughters, by the way, ذَبح is to slaughter. Oh, I should be specific. ذَبح is to slaughter by means of the neck. Specifically. So time is of the essence. We have a lot of kids to kill, just get the neck and go. That's kind of the idea here. ذَبَّحَ, there's ذَبح, and there's ذَبَّحَ. You hear a little bit of like almost a pause on the second letter. Which that second one I said is used here. يُذَبِّحُ. You hear like the shadda on the ba, right? Like kind of the emphasis. That means he violently and continuously and regularly slaughters their baby boys. يُذَبِّحُ أَبْنَاءَهُم. Baby boys are mentioned. What would you expect to be mentioned next? Baby what? Baby girls are not mentioned. يُذَبِّحُ أَبْنَاءَهُم. By the way, actually, let me ask first, why baby boys? Why kill the boys? When you have a tyrant, what is always going to be a problem historically for tyrants? Always. Are young men. Always. Because young men get angry. This is why the frontal lobes here are slower than here. We get angry. When we get mad, we get mad. We do stupid things. And sometimes we do righteously stupid things. So the fear of this tyrant and of this Pharaoh, let's just stick to the story. The fear of the Pharaoh, the fear that he has, is if I just allow this population to go as it may, what will happen to the young men? They will grow up to be 16, 17, 18, see that their mother's being oppressed, see that their father's being beaten in the slave quarters when he's supposed to be working and he's collapsing and he gets beaten, and they're going to come together and overthrow who? The government, overthrow the Pharaoh. So what he does is he employed that there is regular slaughtering. What we learn from the Bible, potentially it's every other year. Potentially every other year. Why every other year? It's enough to keep them, but also to make sure we have some boys for what? Labor. Genius. I mentioned before, by the way, he mentioned baby boys but left out baby girls. يُذَبِّحُ أَبْنَاءَهُم, and Allah continues, وَيَسْتَحْيِي نِسَاءَهُم. Any kids in the audience? No, right? Okay. He slaughters the baby boys and he keeps the women alive. You would expect he slaughters the baby boys and keeps alive the baby girls. That's what you would expect. Allah does not say that. Allah says he paints a bigger picture just by swapping one word. This is a genius of Allah. By swapping one word, he gives a whole other layer to this. It's kind of a bad layer, yani, so forgive me. وَيَسْتَحْيِي نِسَاءَهُم, and he keeps their women alive. I almost feel I don't need to spell this out for you. Why not kill the girls? Because number one, they see them as baby-making machines. And number two, what can you do to women? And I don't want you to answer, but the guards can just now have their way with them. وَيَسْتَحْيِي نِسَاءَهُم. And the men are so neutered, they're so weak, of no fault of their own, but they're so weak that they can't do anything about it. All they can do is suppress it. That's it. They can't do anything. I have to add, do you see how familiar this is, by the way? Anyone else? You seeing it too? You see how like when Allah speaks, it's not like, this is not just 1400, this is happening literally now. Anyway, I don't want to harp on that. إِنَّهُ كَانَ مِنَ الْمُفْسِدِينَ. No doubt about it, he was always of the mufsideen, the deeply corrupt. He was always deeply corrupt. وَنُرِيدُ أَنَّ. So the camera panned at him and he's looking above everyone. He's this evil plan, this genius plan this political plan of his, that he's looking down and seeing like, this is what I did this. And the camera panned out and showed you what he does to the ghettos. And Allah continues, وَنُرِيدُ أَن نَمُنَّ عَلَى الَّذِينَ اسْتُضْعِفُوا فِي الْأَرْضِ. And we wanted to favor those that were weakened in the land. وَنَجْعَلَهُمْ أَئِمَّةً. And all those people that you have in your mind, we're going to make them leaders. Leaders. How do you go from this to leaders? And not only that, وَنَجْعَلَهُمْ الْوَارِثِينَ. And we're going to make them inheritors. Now you tell me, when do you inherit something? When someone what? Someone else what? Dies. And then you get inheritance. What's Allah saying in between the text here? Who's dying soon? The Pharaoh. You know, like in a movie, it's interesting. This is actually like a ploy that many movies and shows do, that they start at the end, and then they, like in the 90s especially, there's like the, I bet you're wondering how I got here. Remember, you know what I mean? They start at the end of the story, and then they go back and show, because the point is not the end, the point is the journey. This is Allah actually, before that was even a thing in movies, employing it 1400 years ago. I want to pause and tell you something here. Ustaz Naman is the one I learned this from. One time he was teaching the story, just teaching it, like he's just going through and giving kind of like the same kind of like ideas that I'm giving you right now. By the end of it, there were film students that came to the lecture. And they were like, Ustaz, we heard 20 different film techniques while you were talking. And 5 of them we don't even have in our textbooks. Now, Ustaz man does not know any film. The point is, the way that Allah tells a story is so like, I don't even want to say modern, because that's almost offensive. It's so good that literally even modern films can't keep up. And when they do, it's just like, I've heard this before. Like, movies now feel boring to me, because like, okay, this is just that. وَنَجْعَلُهُمُ الْوَارِثِينَ. He's telling us how this story ends, actually right now. وَنُمَكِّنَ لَهُمْ فِي الْأَرْضِ. And we're going to establish them in the land. وَنُرِيَ فِرْعَوْنَ. And we're going to show the Pharaoh. وَهَمَانَ. And Haman. We'll get there in a minute. وَجُنُودَهُمَا مِنْهُمْ. And both of their armies. مَا كَانُوا يَحْذَرُونَ. The exact thing that they were afraid of. The camera now pans, zooms in. You have this big oppressive thing. Children being slaughtered. Women being raped. People being divided. Fights breaking out. Propaganda against the slaves in the rich district. Propaganda against rich district among the slaves. You can imagine poverty. With poverty comes stealing and crime and all sorts of stuff. And it zooms in on the Pharaoh, and for a brief moment in time, when Allah says, مَا كَانُوا يَحْذَرُونَ, you see the Pharaoh with his proud little grin, and then you see a little bit of a twitch in his eye. And Allah saying, what you don't see there is actually there's fear. I'm going to show him exactly what he's afraid of. It's almost like the camera zooms in to where the camera can't usually zoom in the heart of a man, and the heart of a person, and it exposes his fear. I'm going to show him the thing, he thinks he's all that right now, but inside I see the fear, and I'm going to exploit that fear. I'm going to show him exactly what he's of him and his armies too. And the screen fades black. And it picks up again. وَأَوْحَيْنَا إِلَىٰ أُمِّ مُوسَىٰ أَنْ أَرْضِعِيهِ. And we told the mother of Musa, feed your baby milk. The hell are you talking? What are you talking about? All of this oppression, and the slaves will rise, and the tyrant will fall, and the screen turns to black, and you're expecting like a war to happen, and now a kid's being fed. You know they use this in film all the time, Allah? You know, like they'll show a similar scene and then it fades to black and like a kid's chasing a chicken and someone's selling rice on a stall or something like that. You know what I mean? No, really, this is like a film technique even they use now, subhanAllah. And Allah is employing the same thing. We're going to stop right here. I want to also, though, just to give you 2 more examples. It's so interesting. Kung Fu Panda 2, do you guys watch that one? Literally what I want to teach you is I want you to find these for yourself because they're literally still being used. You guys who watched Kung Fu Panda 2? Okay, you did whether you realize it or not. But anyway, there's a peacock who يَسْتَضْعِفُ طَائِفَةً مِنْهُمْ. He actually split the people up into different sects, and then he had a dream of a creature of black and white rising up and overthrowing his government. Just like in the Bible, by the way, the Pharaoh has a dream that someone from the slaves of Israel will rise up. So anyway, he's afraid. So what does he makes an order that all the pandas, the creatures of black and white, should get what? Slaughtered. But then one panda mommy was like, well, you know what? I'm going to put my baby in a basket, and I'll throw him in a river. Need I go on? And then he becomes a dragon warrior and takes care of the peacock king. Peacock king, right? Kung Fu Panda 1 is interesting too because that one, you have a student of Shifu. Remember Shifu, the little, what was he?
Red panda.
Yeah, a little red panda thing. Thank you, man. You guys really know your stuff. MashaAllah. That's a lot of Quran, you know. So Shifu, he has a student that's like a leopard or something, and he was taught like soon he will be the dragon warrior. So he's like, oh, cool, yes, I'm going to be a dragon warrior. And he becomes arrogant. So when it's time for him to take the mantle, he's actually denied. He expected the position and didn't get the position. And then all of a sudden, some fat guy named Po, this creature of black and white, you know what I mean? He comes up, and now he's chosen as dragon warrior. And this guy's like, what are you talking about? I'm the one that's qualified. You trained me for years. And he wages war against Shifu. It's kind of like how Iblis was supposed to be the Khalifa, and then Adam a.s. came along, and he's like, you created him from clay and created me from fire. What's the deal? And then declared himself an enemy. We cannot escape the stories of Allah, whether we like it or not, wallah. really start paying attention to it. But do you see how even in the specifics, how like the way Allah's telling us so far, He set this beautiful scene, screen fading to black, and now today we're not going to, but we're going to actually get into the story soon, the way Allah tells it. Beautiful stuff, right? Amazing, subhanAllah. Not how it's usually taught, but beautiful stuff. Anyway, I'm going to end it there. I think I should either at 9 or 9:15. I don't know, but I'm not going to risk it. So we're going to end right here. I don't know if we have time for discussion, but we'll try our best, inshallah. Let's end with Surah Al-Asr. You guys ready? أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم والعصر إن الإنسان لفي خسر إلا الذين آمنوا وعملوا الصالحات وتواصوا بالحق وتواصوا بالصبر. Allah says, I swear by time that's running out, every individual human being is drowning in loss except for those who believe and do good deeds and invite to the truth and invite with patience. May Allah make us of them.